Greetings and welcome to the Arnold or Stallone podcast, the first and only podcast dedicated to the movie careers of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. I am your host, Tim, and I'd like to welcome you back. Today we're going to take a step back from the Arnold or Stallone, and we're going to do a Solo Stallone. We've done a couple of these in the past, and today is no different. We're going to talk about 1991's Oscar, starring Sylvester Stallone. And you may be wondering what a Solo Stallone is. Generally, we would like to do a Schwarzenegger and Stallone movie, and I'll talk about both of them. And at the end of the day, I'll decide who's acting kind of made me lean towards one or the other. As you may or may not know, Stallone has done more movies than Schwarzenegger, and so in order to give all these movies the praise or attention they deserve, we kind of decided to do some by themselves. That way we can hopefully keep the tallies close. And so today, like I say, we're going to do 1991's Oscar. As always, we're going to start with the Rotten Tomatoes, and according to the critics, this is rotten at 12%. Now, granted, there's only 17 reviews, so take that as you were. The audience score is a little higher at 64%. Well, I guess that's a lot higher, but so yeah, that's 1991's Oscar. This movie stars Sylvester Stallone. It's got Chaz Palminteri in it. Tim Curry is in it. Marissa Tomei, in what I understand is her first movie that she was in. Kurtwood Smith, Red Foreman for all you 90s, 80s, 70s show fans. Harry Shearer is in it. Kirk Douglas, if I hadn't already mentioned, he's in the beginning. So, or the first scene. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started with 1991's Oscar, directed by John Landis. This movie is based on a play that was of the same name, and I believe it was also a remake. They had made this movie originally in 1967, a French film, which was also called Oscar. So yeah, let's just dive into Oscar. So it's basically set in Depression era New York City. We the first shot, we see the streets with the nice cool 1930s cars, and the one car pulls up and it's raining, and the car pulls up to the sidewalk, and the hired muscle gets out, and they open up the umbrella and open the back seat or the back door, and we see the first shot of Stallone. He's in the overcoat, and they open up the umbrella for him, and they make their way into the building, and apparently his father is on his deathbed, and as his aunt opens the door, Stallone, which his name in this movie, Angelo Snaps Provolone. So Snaps comes and sees his dying father on his deathbed, and his aunt informs him that he made it just in time. And Don Amici is the priest, and he's essentially just giving last rites because there's no coming back. He's pretty much done with, and so Stallone pulls up a chair and sits next to his father, and he's all, "Papa," and Kirk Douglas is, "Angelo, is that you?" "Yes, Papa, it's me." And all of a sudden, Kirk Douglas just slaps him across the face, and, "What I do, Papa? What I do?" And his father gives him his deathbed request, I guess, last request. He tells Snaps he wants him to give up the mob life, give up the crime world, and become an honest man. And he tells him that that's what he wants. He wants, he doesn't want him to be involved with crime anymore. And Stallone just kind of like, okay. And so we see Kirk Douglas do the classic over-the-top dramatized, lays back down, and you assume he's dead. And Stallone does the religious thing that they do, and all of a sudden Kirk Douglas jumps up real quick and slaps him one more time, and he's all, "What?" And he's like, "That's so you don't forget." And then again he just this time he's done. And it's great. After his father dies, Stallone just does the deadpan stare into the camera, and that's kind of the beginning. That's the setup of the story we are going to talk about here, and credits and all that. And so essentially, once the credits are done, then we start with the accountant of Snaps comes to the house. he tells Snaps that he is in love with his daughter and he wants to marry his daughter. And yeah, well, actually, before that, all Stallone's hired muscle have now become, I guess, straight guys instead of being thugs. One of them is the doorman. And then they got a bunch of guys working in the kitchen. They're playing cards, and one of them's supposed to be the cook, and they don't know what they're doing, and so they're trying to gamble. And the butler guy, which I forget his name, but he's you've seen him before, and he's telling them, you guys got to get this breakfast ready, and no more gambling. And there's a knock at the door, and then he goes and answers the door, and that's when it's Snap's accountant, and it's like 8:00 in the morning, and he's like, I need to see Mr. Provolone, and the doorman's like, no, he doesn't get up till 9:30, and the accountant is, it's a matter of life or death, I really need to talk to him. And he's like, all right, and so you go over there and wait in the study, and I'll go up and get him. And of course, this house is just huge, just glamorous, and it's got the big, huge staircase, and he runs up there, and Chaz Palminteri is kind of like watching the door, and they do have a quick exchange as far as like, oh, don't wake up the boss. And he's like, it's a matter of life and death. And he's like, okay, and goes in there and wakes him up, and Stallone comes out, and he's just like, okay, this better be good. And they're all like, it is, boss. And Stallone's like, how many times have I told you not to call me boss? And I'm like, sorry, boss. And that's kind of a running joke that they use. And he Snaps finds the accountant, and the accountant proclaims his love for his daughter, and he wants to marry his daughter. And Stallone's like, oh, okay, I didn't even know you guys knew each other. And oh yeah, no, I love her. And or at first he's asking for a raise. He asked for a raise while he's talking about how he loves his daughter. And he's like, I really like to make $1,400 a month. And Snaps is like, how much do you make now? And he's like, $400. He's like, well, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And the accountant's like, I really want to give your daughter the life that she deserves, and I really would like this raise. And Snaps is like, well, yeah, I don't think so. And how are you going to support my daughter? And that's when the accountant, I guess, reveals to Stallone that he's been skimming off his books, and he, setting up his accounts, he skimmed off a nickel for each bottle of beer because it's prohibition time, and so he took this money and set it aside, and he had every intention of giving it to Snaps' daughter. So essentially, he's going to support Snaps' daughter with Snaps' money, and that doesn't go over too well with Stallone, and Snaps is just all pissed, and how dare you? And so then finally he just tells the accountant, yeah, I don't think I want you marrying my daughter. And it's in the course of the accountant's proclaiming, no, I can take care of her, and I just would want your wishes, and I would like this raise. And he's like, well, let me think about it. He's like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And so they have a couple more exchanges back and forth, and when Snaps finds out the accountant has been skimming off his books, Chaz Palminteri, who is kind of his, I guess, right-hand man, so to speak, bodyguard, whatever, pulls out the gun and was going to shoot him, and Snaps is like, no, we don't do that anymore. We're straight and narrow. And he gives me, give me that gun. And so he makes him give him his gun and lets the accountant up, and just like, no, I don't, let me think about it. And it's like, okay. And so they kind of takes off, and then it cuts to across the street. We have a couple police officers watching the residence, because from the time his father died until now, not a lot has been going on. And so they're assuming Snaps is up to something pretty major, and so they're watching, and they see the accountant go in, and they're talking amongst themselves, oh, something's big coming up. And so we kind of get the introduction of those guys, and then the next scene we get introduced to apparently the opposition in the Mobland world, where the informant is telling the other mob boss of Snaps' intentions. He wants to take his money and not really donate it, I guess, put it into the bank, become part of the bank. He support the bank, and he wants to be on the board of directors and have a decision on the bank, and just kind of go the straight and narrow. And so they decided that's so the other boss is not really. He's like, well, that doesn't make sense. He's up to something big. I think he's going to join up with the other mob family and make a big mob family, and that doesn't bode well for me. And so then we get introduced to the second mob boss, and so then we get introduced to Snaps' daughter, which is played by Marissa Tomei, and her name is Lisa, and she's smoking cigarettes and reading I guess, racy material for the time and listening to the I guess what would be the equivalent of the devil music that parents say their kids listen to. And Snaps goes and knocks on the door because he's the accountant had mentioned that they had been intimate, him and his daughter, which obviously pushed him over the edge. And so now he's upstairs wanting more information or wanting an explanation or just wanting something. And so he goes and banging on her door, and it's all locked. And so as he's calling her name, she's quickly getting rid of the book and turning off the record and trying to stamp out the cigarette, and opens the door, and Stallone comes bursting in and says, "Oh, I just met your boyfriend." And she's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "Well, he came here, professing his love for you, and he told me you guys were intimate together." And she was just like, "What? No, that's not the thing, And she's apparently, because she's the daughter of the mob boss, she's kind of under close house watch. She's not able to come and go as she wants or have the life that she wanted, and she wants to get out of the house. And she's like, "Well, I want to marry him. I want to move out. I want to be on my own." And Snaps is just against it all the way. He just does not want this to happen, and so he is just like not happy about the idea of his daughter being married to his accountant, and so they have a back and forth. And she, being the rich kid she is, does not get her way, and so her only course of action is to throw a temper tantrum. And as he's leaving, she's just on the bed screaming and wailing and just being the spoiled brat that mob kids can be at that time. I don't know. So anyway, then we cut back to, we're back downstairs, and the accountant comes back and tells Snaps that he had invested the $50,000 that he stole off of Snaps and invested it in precious jewels, and he wanted to give the precious jewels to his daughter as a wedding gift and kind of a support type thing. And he's just brings the bag of jewels, and so then they have a little more discussion about and then we cut to the maid, which the maid's kind of one of the background characters. And so the maid's upstairs talking to the daughter, and the daughter's telling the maid that, "Oh man, I just want to explore the world. I don't want to go to an opium den in Chinatown, and I just want to live life, and my dad won't let me, and he doesn't want me to get married to my boyfriend." And the maid drops the bomb like, "Well, hey, just tell your dad you're pregnant, and then that way he will force you to get married." And she's like, "Oh, will that work?" And the maid's like, "Of course." And so she comes up with this great idea that, okay, I'll just tell my dad I'm pregnant, and then he'll force us to get married, and then we can live happily ever after, and I can go on my own little way. And so then it cuts to Stallone. He's downstairs, and he's just getting, like, he has this itinerary for the day, and his first appointment is at 9:30 in the morning, because this is the day he's also meeting the bankers. So his first appointment is with the tailors. The tailors are coming over. They're going to fit him for the new suit. The Fushinis. So they come knocking on the door and trying to get Stallone ready and getting them all measured up. And as he's doing this, the maid is trying to, talk to Snaps too. And so he's getting measured, and then the doorbell goes off again, and we get the accountant back. And each time the accountant comes back, he's got another black bag. And so the cops across the street are seeing him with these black bags, and they're just like, "Wow, he's got a lot of drop-offs today." And so then they get on the phone with their supervisor, which is played by Kurtwood Smith, and he's kind of the old, I've been following this guy for years, and now I'm going to watch him, and when I bring him down, it's going to give my career the boost that I want. And so they let him know that he's got all these bagmen coming over and dropping off bags. And so then he comes back over with the jewels again, and the maid is just wanting she wants a raise, and Stallone's like, "No." And so she tells Snaps that she's getting married to one of the rival bosses, and she doesn't need his money, and or she's going to go work for him. Essentially, this mob boss is taking all, I guess, his people, so to speak. And so he's just like, "No, you got to stay, or you're fired, and you can't fire me. I quit." And so she ends up packing her things and leaving, and so then the cops see her leaving with a black bag, and so they're assuming it's a transaction just happened, and so they're just watching diligently to see what happens. And Snaps goes back upstairs to his daughter's room, and she's a little more subdued now and just kind of, oh, Daddy, I don't know. I should pack and go to the convent. And he's like, what? And she's like, well, I'm pregnant. And he's like, what? And so oh, yeah, the convent. That way I can go there. I'm an unwed mother, and they can help me take care of my baby, and we can do this. And then Snaps is just like, no, you will get married, and you will do this and this. And so Lisa's all, okay, yeah, great. And so now she's happy. She can get married. Snaps goes back downstairs. Doorbell goes off again, and it's this woman, Teresa. And so he brings her in, and she talks to her. She talks to him, and lets him know that she is the fiancée of the accountant. Which at the time, Snaps thought Lisa was the fiancée for the accountant, but no, it's this other woman. Her name's Teresa, and Teresa lays out the truth that she told Anthony, who was the accountant, that she was his daughter. And she came over to tell him first that no, I was lying to him, and so Anthony's under the impression that she's the daughter, and she's not the daughter, and so now Stallone's just kind of like, what? And then Anthony comes back, and actually before she introduces Teresa introduces to herself. Snaps takes Anthony, the accountant, upstairs to Lisa, and then okay, now you guys are gonna get married. And they're like, well, who are you? Who are you? And so we got that thing going on, and then it's revealed that Teresa is pretending to be Snaps' daughter. And Stallone goes back down and gets more of his suit measured out, and then we get a knock on the door again. And one of his other appointments is for the English, like a professor taught there to teach him how to speak fluently or correctly and use the right words, and because they're New York gangsters and they got that. And so then he comes over and talks with Stallone, and now Stallone's all trying to get, Lisa. So Lisa tells Stallone who the father of her baby is, and it turns out to be his old limo driver, Oscar, and she wants to marry him. Well, Oscar apparently got fired, joined the army, and now has been sent away on a 6-year hitch over in Europe to fight the war there. And so now Stallone's got this idea to try to find another suitor, another husband for his daughter. And that's when he thought Anthony would work, but no, because he kind of broke up Anthony and Teresa. And so then he's like, no, okay. So now this other doctor comes in who is played by Tim Curry. He brings him in and introduces him to her daughter, and they kind of hit it off, kind of not, it takes a while. I mean, it's not love at first sight, and they both realize they have something in common. They both have an overbearing parent, and his mother is very protective and her father is very protective, and they kind of have a bond over that. And then they slowly kind of, goo eyes at each other, I guess. And then Anthony comes back. So then Stallone ends up tricking Anthony into thinking that he is the father of her child, of Lisa's kid, has him sign a declaration of taking care of her and the baby, and in exchange he was going to give the jewels to his Snaps. And so they do this whole thing, and there's a lot of bag exchanges going on. And then the maid ends up leaving with her bag, and as she's leaving, Snaps puts the bag of jewels down, and it's the classic. The maid comes in telling him one final words, puts her bag next to the bag, which they're identical bags. And as she leaves, she picks up the other bag, which happens to be the jewels. And Snaps goes back with Tim Curry's character and tells him, you can have whatever's in this bag. It's $50,000 worth of precious jewels, and it's all yours to marry my daughter. And Tim Curry's kind of like, I don't know, and little apprehensive. And Stallone's like, here, well, feast your eyes on this, and does the old bag open and dumps everything, the contents on the table, and it's just full of women's underwear. And Snaps is kind of like, whoa, and then realizes what happened and runs and gets on the phone and has his driver bring the bag back. And so he gets the bag back, and then, a couple more things. He does a couple more measurements with the tailors, and then the wife comes in. His wife, Snaps' wife, comes in all just fury, and what'd you do to our daughter, and this, that, and the other. And the tailors are kind of becoming a big deal. They are, I guess, doing the tailoring for the big bosses, and one of their suits ended up in the newspaper, and they're very proud of it. And they show Snaps the picture of the suit that they are very proud of. Well, it was being worn by a guy who was shot down in a restaurant, so you see him face down on a the dining room table, and they're like, oh, that's our suit. That's, we got mainstream coverage now. And then we have Anthony coming back, and he again professes his love, and turns out he had skimmed another 50 grand off of Snaps and another offshore kind of phantom accounting. And he became, since he's controlled of Stallone's money, he was able to fleece off this extra money, and he wanted to again use it to buy back the jewels, because when he sees the jewels, it reminds him of Teresa, and he just wants to get back with Teresa. And of course, this doesn't go well with Snaps. He gets all furious again, and the doorman guy comes running in and he has the gun pointing. You want me to do him, boss? And that's when Snaps like, no, we don't do that. And how many times I tell you, stop calling me boss, and sorry, boss. So Snaps makes the doorman give up his gun, and so then he gets the money from Anthony. At the same time, he gets the bag back of jewels, and he swaps it out for what he thinks is the maid's underwear, or her, when she packed and she left. And so he was going to cleverly swap out bags, get the bag of cash, and give Anthony the bag of women's underwear. And turns out another switcheroo where the bags get kind of mistaken again, and so he ends up giving him the jewels and takes the bag of money and gives it to Connie, which is the Chaz Palminteri character, and he's obviously, or of course, the dumb boss or right-hand man. Gives it to Connie, and he tells him, take this in the library and do not take your eyes off it. Just whatever you do not take your eyes off this bag. And he's like, okay, boss, and goes in the library and puts the bag on the table and just sits there and stares at it. While this is going on, we get Poole, the Tim Curry character, and Lisa are in the garden together, and they're getting to know each other and walking around and kind of, telling their sob stories of being under the weight of a overbearing parent. And as more time goes on, they kind of discuss their future plans and, would you like to get together? And so slowly falling in love and walking hand in hand. And somehow this catches the attention of Connie, and he goes over to the window and he's watching them, and they're just slowly falling in love with each other and kind of start kissing and just enjoying each other's company. And so we got that. And then all of us cut to the doorbell going off again, and it's the maid's fiance's driver with the bag of underwear that he brought back to exchange for the other bag, because he doesn't know it's just a bag to the driver. He has no idea what it is. And he gives the bag to the doorman, and the doorman is like, oh, I know where her belongings are. I'll go get that for you. It's in the library. And he takes the other bag and swaps bag in the library as Connie's all transfixed with the two couples outside falling in love, and grabs the bag that has the money in it and puts the bag down with the underwear in it and goes back and gives it to the other driver. And of course, the cops across the street are just seeing all these bags being delivered, and they're just out of their mind as far as like, wow, how many bag drops is he having today? This is crazy. He's just getting bag after bag after bag. And so then the exchange is made, and the driver takes off. And so then we get Snaps brings in Dr. Poole and gives him the proposition as far as, again, now I have the money. If you want to marry my daughter, you can take whatever you want that's in this bag, and it's all yours. And again, dumps all the contents on the table. And once again, it's the women's underwear. And Snaps he cannot believe it and starts banging his head on the desk. He just does not, it's just so foreign to him how he's like, what? And he looks to Connie, didn't you watch this bag? And he's like, yeah, I didn't take my eyes off it. And then it comes to the realization where the doorman comes in and they start talking, and he's like, oh, I swapped the bags out. The driver came back, and Snaps is like, well, what bag did you swap it with? And he's like, the one in the library. And he's like, well, didn't you see Connie? And he's like, no, I didn't see him in there. And so then he's verbally lashing out at them as far as how stupid they are. And then cut back to the cops, and Red Foreman, I'm going to call him Red Foreman. He's seen enough. He's seen enough bags going in and out of this house. He's decides that, okay, it's time to take him down. I've seen enough. There's been 3 or 4 or 5 different bagmen coming in today, so he's still doing the life of crime. I don't care what they say. He's not going straight. And he gets the press around because he wants to make a big deal out of it and make a big scene and kind of showcase himself being taking down the mob boss. And so he's getting on the phone and he's having everybody come over, and then we cut to the bankers they come to the house, and of course they're the snooty, I don't want a gangsta involved with our bank. And so they come in for their noon meeting to get to know Snaps, and they want the money. They have no problem put the money in the vault, but they are completely against the idea of Snaps being on the board of directors or having any kind of say of what happens in the bank. And they just, nope, not gonna do it. And they're on their way to the house. And actually, I should say, before they get there, the new housekeeper shows up, and turns out, long story short, she is the had worked for a mob boss that Stallone had worked with, and it turns out that they were lovers way back when Snaps was just a feisty young teenager, and she ended up having a child out of that. And well, wouldn't you know that child actually was Teresa. And so Teresa is truly Stallone's daughter. He has 2 daughters, and Anthony comes back and just tells Teresa, so Anthony comes back and Teresa's already there telling whatever story. I mean, there's so much going on here. It was just, one thing I will say is this movie definitely, when you watch it, you can tell it was based on a play, because there's a lot going on. And so Anthony and Teresa reconcile. They don't need the money or the jewels. They just want to live together, or be married and be together. And like I say, turns out that Teresa's mother is Snap's new maid, which in turn 25 years ago or whatever it was Snaps's first. And so boom, happy family. Oh, we're going to get married. And then the bankers come over, and that's when Red Foreman and the police across the street decide to bust into the house because they've seen enough. And everybody's sitting down at dinner with the bankers, and the bankers are just, like I say, they're not keen to the idea of Snaps being on the board, but hey, we'll take your money to finance the bank. And as they're doing this, like I say, the cops come busting in with the press. The cameras are flashing and popping and going off, and they're just making accusations. And we've seen enough, Snaps. We know you're up to no good, and we've seen bags coming in and out of this house all day, and you're going down. I don't care. You're not straight. You're going down. And Snaps is like, whatever do you mean? I've done nothing but just meet people and try to make the chaos, or try to calm all this chaos down from everything that's been going on. And you got the wrong guy. And Red's like, oh, I'll show you. And he goes throughout the house and he finds a bag, and he's like, this is the bag of money I knew it was. And gentlemen, get your cameras ready. This is one of the greatest days in New York police history, and we're going to take down the biggest mobster the city has ever seen. And cops get ready to take pictures, and as they're getting ready, of course, he opens the bag and dumps the contents onto the table, and what would you know that's still the bag of the maid's underwear. Red's just like, what the hell? And just, of course, everyone starts laughing at him, and he just leaves in disgust because he's kind of just made a fool of himself. And Snaps like, I tried to tell you, we've done nothing wrong today. And so as he's leaving, that's when the other mobsters decide to make their move, because they think Snaps is going to, align himself with this other mob, and they're on their way to the house to just Tommy gun the whole thing. And as they're arriving, the cops are leaving, and then they have this crash out in front of the house, and just when that everybody's all right, which is funny when you look at the crash. 1930s, no seatbelts, and those cars smashing into each other pretty good, and nobody's hurt, and everybody gets out, and they're kind of shaking a little bit. And that's when the cops just immediately swarm the gangsters' cars, guns drawn, and you're going away for a long time. I don't even remember what this other gangster's name was. I didn't realize. If they said, I don't remember. I had to watch this movie twice, but you only see him a couple times. He's kind of a story, a plot device, I guess, to kind of just be, to move the story along a little bit. So then Red does get his big mob boss taken down. It's not the one he wants, but he'll take whatever he can get. And so then we cut back to the house, and that's when Poole and Lisa come in, and they've proclaimed they're getting married now, and Snaps is just super happy. And then we cut to the double wedding in the foyer of their house, and everybody's dressed to the gills, and the priest is, administering the wedding, and they, do you take this? Do you take this? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, if anybody has anything to say, and all of a sudden in the background you hear, I object, and turns around and there's this little guy in an army outfit, and the priest is like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Oscar." And then Snaps looks at him, and he's got, his henchman behind him, and he's just not happy. And so he, Connie, get rid of him. All of a sudden you see the henchmen, they had lifted up the Oscar, and they're carrying him out, literally carrying him out above his head. And, boom, there you go. And cuts to the, you may kiss the bride, and everybody's happy. And then it fades to black, end of the movie. So, I will say, I know I kind of went a little quick over this movie, but there was so much going on. This movie was so rapid fire. I remember when it came out in 1991, I had no desire of seeing it because at that time Stallone was he was Rambo, he was Rocky, he was the action star, and so this one was kind of billed as the comedy, which wasn't his first, because Tango and Cash was kind of a action comedy. Let's see, this movie didn't really make a whole lot of money. Actually, it made less. The budget was $35 million, and it only made 23.5. It was good to see Stallone, and I enjoy him in his other ventures, the other roles, I guess, is what he tried, the diversity, I guess I'm trying to say, what he tries to do, where it's not just always Rambos or Rockies or the tough guy or whatever. I do enjoy this. He can be a pretty funny guy. Like I said, that this movie had, I knew, because in the beginning, on the credits, it tells you it is based on a play. And the way that the formula of the movie was going, you could definitely tell it was a play. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean there was just so much going on, and I like movies that are kind of centralized in one location, because it's generally around Stallone's house, and the doorbell keeps going off, and Stallone's going back and forth trying to put out all these fires, and all this other information's coming at him, and he's just like, trying to be on the straight and narrow, which is actually, I totally left out the last part, is before it fades to black, Stallone decides, you know what, this living straight this is for the birds. Yeah, sorry, Dad, I tried. I'm sticking with a life of crime. And so I thought that was pretty funny, where after one day of trying to be Mr. Straight Guy, it just didn't work out. And he's like, no, so that's not working. We're stuck with what we know, and we make more money that way. And so I thought that was pretty funny. The bag transferring from one person to another, the multiple bags. I know it's kind of a little cliche thing, but I still thought it was funny. The second time he dumps the underwear on the table, and Tim Curry's character plays along because Snaps, he was just hyping it up. No, this is a bag of cash. You can take as much as you want, and it's just underwear. And Poole's like, oh, yeah, picks up a bra. Oh, yes, this is this is good. And then he picks up like a pair of pantyhose, and oh, this is one of those new 20s I heard so much about. And so it's a good movie. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't really, for the Rotten Tomatoes, I thought it would have been, I think 11% is a little low, to be honest with you. It's a fun movie. Like I say, I had to watch it twice, because the first time I watched it, I wasn't giving it the attention I should have. I mean, it's not like an Inception or anything where you're just lost the whole time, but I was kind of in and out. And every time I left the room, when I missed some stuff, like I missed the, some plot that, as I'm watching, I'm like, what, how, what, where, what? So I had to watch it a second time. But no, it's a fun movie. It's definitely one that I think if you've never seen it, you should definitely check it out, because it's, like I say, it's a pretty slick. It's pretty rapid. It doesn't feel, it moves along smoothly, I guess I should say. A lot of faces that you would recognize. And like I say, Stallone is always enjoyable. So yeah, so that's Oscar. Hope I did it justice for you. So, but yeah, so I was looking at what we're got coming up. If I can say that right, let me start that again. So I was looking at what we got coming up as far as the Arnold Stallone podcast, and we actually, on the next episode, will continue doing a Solo Stallone, because we're going to look at the classic Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. I was reading up on this one, and I was kind of curious what Stallone thought of this movie. And apparently he did an interview back in like 2007. And he, when they asked him what he thought of this movie, he gave there's two movies I wish I wouldn't have done. This one was one of them, and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot will be was the other one. And quick little tidbit on Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. That movie he kind of did as far as Schwarzenegger baiting him into doing it, and by that Schwarzenegger had expressed interest in doing it with no intention of doing it, but he thought because we are now in the height of these two actors going at each other just because, for supremacy, they one hit after another, and so Schwarzenegger was expressing public interest that he wanted to do this movie. But when Stallone got the opportunity to do it, he grabbed it and did it. And Schwarzenegger's kind of like, I fooled you. I didn't want to do that. And so, again, that was another one I have not seen ever. I do remember the trailers when that movie came out. I'm kind of looking forward to it because it could be either be really, really bad, which is what I'm kind of expecting, or it could be a surprise, like a surprise good time. Now, movies that so far in this series that I've done or watched that I expected to just hate actually turned out to be pretty fun. I mean, if you've heard Rhinestone, the Solo Stallone we did last year, I expected that movie to just lick balls. Actually, that movie was a fun movie. This one I had, again, no expectations. I try not to go in with any expectations because, like I say, we'll see what you got. Let's see what you got. Lay your cards on the table. Let's see what we got. And I wasn't disappointed. I bought this movie on DVD, and I'm glad I did because I'll definitely watch it again. It's funny. It was fast paced. It was, entertaining, and so we'll see. Yeah. So catch us on the next episode where it'll definitely be Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So I'm pretty sure I'll have the answer to what that movie will be all about. Like I say, I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to it. That's all. Like I say, I'm not expecting anything good, so maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. So I don't know. But yeah, so that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Solo Stallone. Like I say, you can always email me at arnoldorstallone@gmail.com, and I am on the internet at the arnoldorstallonepodcast.com. Check us out there. You can also reach out to us there if you like, and there's a YouTube channel out there somewhere. It's not really getting the attention it should, but hey, what can I say? I'm only one guy here, so. So yeah, thank you for spending some time with me, and hope everything goes well, and we will talk to you next time.